Alrighty, cool. So this will be, I suppose this will be an episode of the Natural Order show. Probably just keep it running on that. I don't know where we're at. We're probably around episode 20 or so. It's been a
I
while.
think so. That sounds great.
I'm back with Paul, pretty much my co-host at this point, most consistent contributor, and we've got some a juicy topic today. Kind of a follow up to all the Charlie Kirk stuff, but in particular, if y'all have heard about the coincisions with the movie, the 1999 movie, I believe, or 98 movie, Snake Eye with uh, Nick Cage.
Nick Cage,
Nick
yeah.
Cage, and yeah, there's just a lot of very, very uncanny connections, and it very much looks like potentially a case of predictive programming, which is something we talked about before. We had at least, I think we may have even had multiple episodes where we did a dive on Back to the Future and a lot of predictive programming around 9/11. And we talked about like The Simpsons and like other things like that. So this is incredibly uncanny. Of all the stuff that emerged out of the Charlie Kirk thing, this one I did definitely raise my eye at this one, and we'll talk more about what it means and stuff. But Paul this is kind of one of his specialty areas, so I will let you take it away.
Yeah, well, I guess before we actually jump into the predictive programming part of it, we can definitely talk a little bit about the shooting itself and how what we were told about it just doesn't really add up.
Mm-hmm.
The thing that really stood out to me on that was like they said that the shooter used a 30-06 to shoot Charlie Kirk in the neck.
Mm-hmm.
If you shoot like 1,000 to 2,000 pound elk or moose or some gigantic animal like that with like a really big thick neck with
Yeah.
a 30-06, it will go clear through and it will leave an exit hole like
Yeah.
four
From
to
an
six inches
explosion.
at least left.
Yeah.
Yeah, like a 30-06 is super fucking powerful, and yet it did not leave an exit wound in Charlie Kirk. And there are people who said, "Oh, well, he was wearing body armor or whatever." Well, there's videos of a 30-06 punching through like level 3 body armor. You would need pretty like seriously thick and heavy, sturdy body armor for a bullet to, for a 30-06 bullet to bounce off of that. Um, and from the videos, it doesn't look like he's honestly, it doesn't even really look like he's wearing body armor under the shirt at all. There are people who say that he is. If he is, he's definitely not wearing anything sturdy enough that it would stop a 30-06. And even if he was, first of all, the bullet hitting him would have like probably knocked him over and definitely like made him move a whole lot more than it did when it hit him. And second of all, you would have heard on especially on the videos from cameras that were up close to him, like you could hear the gunshot. You didn't really hear a bullet ricocheting off of steel sound from the bullet supposedly hitting his body armor.
Yeah.
So that, to me, that doesn't really add up.
Yeah.
Maybe he could have been shot by something way smaller caliber, uh, that would have gotten stuck in his neck like a 22. Okay, maybe that would have been more reasonable to expect us to believe, but uh, that did not look at all like what you would have expected if he had gotten shot in the neck by a 30-06.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't even really look or sound like what you would expect from a 30-06, hitting body armor and then bouncing up into the neck. So that was the biggest thing that stood out to me as weird. But even just in general, you had like multiple people at the shooting who kind of caused chaos by saying, "Oh, I'm the shooter, arrest me," and then
Right.
obviously turned out not to be. So you had a lot of weirdness around that. You had the big like memorial that was planned and like orchestrated in like a week and a half. That was just this like huge, made for TV event, tons of speakers, fireworks going off. Uh, and I mean, look, I know this is TPUSA; they're good at organizing events, but this was like a pretty like big, well organized, well orchestrated event thrown together in like almost no time at all.
Mm-hmm.
That it's a little weird, and a lot of people have commented on how like Erica Kirk's behavior in the aftermath of this is pretty weird, and how like she didn't really seem that emotional about her husband's death. She even when she did get emotional, like almost looked like more like she was acting and pretending to be emotional rather than like she actually was.
Mm-hmm.
Some people have brought up some weirdness about her history with
Yep.
there was like a charity that she was in called Romanian Angels that she was one of the people running it, and basically there were accusations by people in Romania that they were actually doing child trafficking, and that like the U.S. military was involved in that. through her history as I think she was the winner of Miss Arizona and
Hmm.
competed in a couple other Miss USA pageants, so she had like connections to Trump through that.
Right.
And there are other people who were on like the same pageant circuit as her, who competed in the same competitions as her, who are now in the Trump administration and basically working directly for him, including one of the lawyers that I think is prosecuting Comey. I think I might be remembering wrong, but yeah, a lot of little kind of weird things that some of them on their own might just be a coincidence, but when you kind of put them all together, it looks like somebody who was like groomed for a specific role rather than something totally organic. Another thing was like Erica's parents were both worked in the military industrial complex and not only had contracts for America's Department of Defense, but they did work for Israel's Iron Dome. So they've got
Mm.
connections to the Israeli military through that, which, of course, as we've gone over on this show, Israel kind of has their hands in a whole lot of weird things,
Yep.
and a whole lot of conspiratorial stuff. So, yeah, those were some of the things I've picked up in looking into this. I don't know if you have anything you want to add to that or expand on.
No, that was good. I mean, you definitely had some of the good points. There were even some details that I hadn't heard, but I've definitely heard, yeah, a lot of the points. Like recently, it's definitely been a lot of stuff about Erica and how she's just like moved on extremely quickly. It just seems like she's, you know, business as normal. Like very, like of course, I mean they take it out of context. It's like the one video of her like smiling. Like you're allowed to have moments of happiness, I guess. Like you shouldn't have to be like what like whatever. But yeah, no, it definitely that's definitely a whole odd thing. And yes, her background, her connections. Um, uh what are some other ones? I mean, yeah. So the one dude who was like, who was the old guy who was at the event, who said that he was the one that shot him, even though he didn't. Yeah, like come to find out, like that guy basically has almost like he's like known for disrupting political events. He's got like a background of it. He was allegedly at 9/11 and gave some kind of testimony there or something. Some kind of and then and also I think he was the Boston Marathon bombing, something about that. Like he called in a bomb threat to that, and so it's almost like he's the go-to guy for that. Like if you wanted to hire someone who's like basically a professional disruptor to be like the this kind of distraction, like he's got the resume and the idea that he would just like be there. I don't know. I mean, it's plausible if that's just what he gets into. But of course, he's Jewish as well. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so yeah, that was like a whole thing. Um, and what else? You still there? I think your camera. You back. So I know one of the other more recent things was the supposed text message between the shooter Tyler Robinson and his roommate, and it sounded like extremely like fucking scripted, like the feds edited it, like that sounded like just fucking terrible. Um, yeah, so like that, there's just a lot of weirdness there. I know there's been some like inconsistencies that are seem smaller, but nothing that's really stood out to me as far as I mean, I don't know. It looks. I don't know what the latest has been with Tyler Robinson. Like I don't think he's confessed still. I don't think he's actually confessed, which is
Yeah,
interesting.
as far as I've heard, he hasn't. And yeah, on the text messages thing, I saw one analysis that like places where like both Android and iPhone would auto capitalize like the first letter of a sentence
Mm,
and things like that, where it was not capitalized, and so therefore it's like, did he turn off all the all the auto capitalization, which not all phones will even let you do that, or
mm-hmm.
like did he like intentionally uncapitalize things somehow? Like
Right,
um, it's just like, yeah, there's things like that where it's a little weird, where it would make more sense if someone was typing it on a keyboard as a fake message rather than if somebody was
right,
like sending it on a phone as a real message.
yeah,
And it's almost like, if they're faking it, it's almost like they're intentionally making it so that 5% or 10% of or whatever of people will notice that it's fake and be like, this is fucked up. Why are they faking this? And the other 90% of people will just go along with it and not think about it.
right.
Um, yeah, so it is one of those things. It's just kind of weird how it's been set up that way. But yeah, that was definitely a good point to bring up. And it's with an event like this, like if this was something pre-scripted, as I'm going to basically argue that it was, um, we're kind of in this series of events that includes 9/11 and COVID and Trump's presidency and the BLM riots and all these other things that are set up to like create a big social conflict. And the Charlie Kirk event, like it fits in perfectly with that.
Mm,
They need both the left and the right at each other's throats, and having this happen and then having a bunch of leftists say, "Oh, he deserved it," and I'm sure a majority of leftists are probably not going online saying he deserves this, but you can definitely find enough of them who are saying that, or who are saying other things that sound totally unsympathetic to get people pissed off. Um,
Yep.
and so this fits in perfectly with the social engineering that they're trying to do in order to create this internal conflict in the U.S. So as far as motive goes, some people are saying, "Oh, this is you know, too big or too weird or whatever to be a conspiracy," and it's like, well, it fits in perfectly with the things that they're trying to do, with the things that they were doing through 9/11 and COVID. It's really not that far outside of the scope of believability for them to have staged an event like this if they were able to stage an event like 9/11.
Yeah. Yeah, it's there's so much possibility and so much speculation, like in terms of how much intention and how much planning there could be behind this. Um, especially when it comes to all the different ramifications. Like you could say that oh, the point of this was to fuck over the left because the shooter was a leftist, or the point of this was to just create division and distraction, which is almost always the case as well. But one of the things that's like even it's almost even simpler. Um, that was one of the things I focused on the whole time, which is obviously just the Mossad Israel connection. And when I first heard some people talking about that, like, oh, it's Mossad, I was kind of like, I mean, why would they do that? Like Charlie Kirk is known as like a big pro-Israel guy. Like that's how I've always known him. That's been basically the main thing I think about when I think about Charlie Kirk. So why would they do that? So I kind of didn't think about it. Then I started to see those clips where like he's recently like basically been turning. He has been turning against Israel, like as everybody has, because it's just like very hard to continue to defend them at this point. It's just like open genocide.
Mhm.
And so yeah, he was basically making the connection between Epstein and Mossad, like just criticizing Netanyahu and Israel, especially with this whole the Gaza conflict. Even I think Candace Owens had released some stuff recently that some more explicit kind of him basically saying like we're not doing this anymore, like we're not supporting Israel or some shit like that. So, but yeah, whenever you see that and you just see how Netanyahu's kind of responded throughout these things, it's very ominous. He's always got this fucking smirk on his face. But yeah, that whole thing was just like that was almost like a simple narrative to me. It's like, hey, he's been a big pro-Israel guy, and then now he decided to flip the script, and so they just took him out. Like that's retaliation. Like that's like a pretty simple. Like to me, that's a more plausible and simple explanation than even than the. I mean, I don't know. I guess it's fairly equally plausible that the idea that there's just some mentally deranged leftist who just wants to try to be a hero and just try to go shoot him or whatever. I mean, that's either way. I mean, like it just kind of fits into what we know that these different factions and parties do. And I think that's almost always worth paying attention to because it's very very difficult to get to the bottom of it on this because so much of it is getting covered up. But it's like it's always the same conclusions anyway. It's like the FBI is shady. Israel and Mossad have pulled plenty of false flags and assassinations and all kinds of manipulation before. And the left is crazy and they're willing to shoot people up, whether it's a psyop or not. So it's just like it's just it's unfortunately in a lot of ways it's like same shit different day. But um, I don't know. I try to look at some of the positive takeaways, which is that it gets a lot of people thinking. It gets a lot of people riled up. Even like my younger brothers who are college age, and they were aware of Charlie Kirk. They've talked about Charlie Kirk before, and so they're not very political like most people aren't. But all of a sudden they were like, okay, this is real. Like this is someone that I partially identify with that's now a target, and so. And of course, there's the whole Christian revival, the whole Christian angle too. That's like a whole thing. But yeah, man, there's just like so many takeaways, so much interesting stuff for sure.
Yeah, actually, you just reminded me. There's this like list on Wikipedia of Israeli assassinations, and yeah, the older decades, like 50s and 60s, there's only a handful of them. There's like a dozen of them in the 70s, another half dozen in the 80s and 90s, and then you get to like the 2000s, and it's like dozens and dozens and dozens of them every day. Like there's like multiple assassination attempts every single year committed by the Israeli government.
And then of course, like the
It's just
American government on behalf of the Israeli government, does all these coups and shit all over the country, all over the world as well.
yeah. So yeah, obviously, like Israel choosing to assassinate somebody would not be anything new or at all out of the ordinary. Yeah. But I guess the thing that gets to me about the possibility of it being like a left-wing shooter, I mean, I guess technically Tyler's not like trans himself, but he's dating a trans person. But like transgender people, as much as I disagree with transgenderism, they're more likely to hurt themselves than they are to actually go out and hurt other people. Like
Yep.
they most of them don't really have the discipline necessary to like go to the range regularly and get good enough at shooting to be a good enough marksman to hit somebody from like 200 yards away for on top of a rooftop sniping down at them in the middle of a crowd. um
Yeah.
so that's one thing where it's like, as much as I don't like the left, I don't think that targeted assassinations are something that your typical random left-wing activist is going to really be capable of pulling off.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas like a trained political operative who is pretending to be a leftist but is actually being trained by some government agency or intelligence agency or military or whatever, that's more plausible.
Mm-hmm.
But just random guy who's pissed off because Charlie Kirk was mean to his trainee girlfriend or whatever, like,
Right.
yeah, I just don't see that as being quite as plausible as an actual like political assassination.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, like we've seen other trans shooters who are like comfortable with guns and able to pull it off. Like we've seen the hard evidence, and like there are like groups of like trans people who are into guns, and yes, they're fucking deranged, and most of the time it is just self harm. But like, I don't know, I don't think it's out of the question that there's a decent bit out there who would be capable and willing to do this. But
Yeah,
I mean, it
I guess
was
you've
well
got a
executed.
handful of them. Yeah, you've got a handful of them doing like, oh, they'll shoot into a crowd or a school shooting or something like that. But that's all like very close range. You don't have to like train marksmanship in order to do it. Whereas hitting somebody from a couple hundred yards away, like multiple football fields away, that's a much longer and harder shot. That's something that you do have to at least have some consistent practice to get good enough at that, to really pull off a shot like that reliably, at least. So I mean, maybe a random person could get lucky and do that, but it just, I don't know, it strikes me as not being anywhere near as likely as a transgender person either killing themselves or killing a random crowd of people up close. Something long range, like what allegedly happened to Charlie Kirk, probably wasn't the real story, but that just doesn't seem like something that you're going to get random political dissident to go do.
Yeah. One of the things I'm thinking about is the Trump attempted shooter who we never really found much out about. I was just asking ChatGPT if there's anything new. No clear motive, no definitive ideology. Okay, he researched multiple targets, used a drone for recon, had homemade explosives, haven't tied him to a clear, coherent political motive, Secret Service file. Yeah, that whole thing, like, did anyone ever get punished or fired because of that? I'm sure some things happen. Yeah, we never really heard much about that.
Yeah, I haven't really heard much update on him in a while. But that's another one where like I don't entirely trust what happened there either.
Yeah.
Yeah, like the photo op was just so incredibly perfect. And anytime that you see something like that that just almost looks like too good to be true, the odds of it being staged are higher because it looks too good to be true.
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess that's my thoughts on that one. But admittedly, I don't have any like clear predictive programming around the Trump assassination. At least not anything anywhere near as clear as what I've got for the Charlie Kirk assassination.
Yep.
So yeah, with that said, if you want to roll the clip that I sent you on Telegram, it's like about 9 minutes.
All right, here we go. Let me actually gotta go back to the beginning because I've gone forward a couple seconds. All right, 3, 2, 1, go.
Welcome to a Powell pay-per-view television event.
Now, the distinguished Secretary of Defense of the United States of America, Mr. Charles Kirkland. And seated next to the Secretary of needs no introduction, the founder of...
Great idea. Put a flashing light on your head while you're at it.
Your host for the evening, Mr. Gilbert Powell.
Boom. The devastating...
It's in the pocket.
Have you been writing to me?
Holy cow!
The challenger's down. Ruiz is down. Punch by Lincoln Tyler. Ruiz was pushing him. He was turning. He Didn't you see them? This is a potentially devastating blow to the champ. I can't see if it's opened up a cut over his eye or not.
We saw it in Holyfield Tyson. Now we see it here. He's down. The champ is down. He's flailing for the
Now listen to me, Mr. Secretary. I am telling you, you are the one that's going to be sorry.
Step back to your neutral corner. Get back. Neutral corner.
Hello? What? Who are you? Where? My lucky number. What?
I'll be damned.
Airball. What kind of a sea devil is that?
What would I risk?
Sorry, did you say you want to pause it?
Yeah.
Okay. Yep. So okay, interesting. Wait.
Okay, so we're like, yeah, about a minute and a half into that video. So a few things. Number one, you had that shot at the beginning of the movie poster where it says "Believe everything but your eyes," and it has Nicolas Cage like holding his hands kind of like this, which is a way that Trump and Musk often hold their hands. That's just something that people have brought up. The similarity between how he holds his hands and how Trump and Musk are often shown holding their hands. That's probably just a minor detail. I don't know if there's anything particularly occult about them holding their hands in that way.
Hey, sorry,
Might just be a coincidence.
Try to unshare your video and share it back again. It's like frozen on Discord.
How's that? Back?
It's coming back. Loading. It's thinking. We may just go without it and we'll figure it out. It's just spinning. Yeah, that's fine. I mean, just go ahead. That's fine. We'll figure it out.
Okay. All right. So yeah, and that first part, with him holding his hands that way and Trump and Musk holding their hands that way, who knows if that's just a coincidence or if there's some deeper meaning there. But the phrase "believe everything but what your eyes see," basically, if we were shown a fake shooting on TV, or even if it was like a real shooting, but it didn't happen at all the way that we were told to think that it happened, of course, a line like that in a movie that predicted it would make sense. We then move on to the kind of that intro scene where they show you the sign advertising the boxing match between Lincoln, the executioner Tyler. Well, if the supposed executioner in the story of Charlie Kirk shooting was named Tyler, and they have a guy named the executioner Tyler. Also, the fight took place. It's kind of unclear in the movie because it's on this digital screen that doesn't show up that well on film, but the date, it's either September 10th at 10 p.m. or September 19th at 10 p.m. and people have kind of disagreed over whether it says 10th or 19th because in some frames it looks like a 10 and some frames it looks like a 19, but you've got a September and a 10 and 10 p.m. at the very least. So even if it is September 19th, well, 19 is 9 plus 10, so if it's September 10th, 9/10, either way, you've got the numerological symbolism there for September 10th. You've got a September and a 10. Also, September 10th being the eve of 9/11, and as you'll see later in this movie has some connections to Islamic terrorism. So it's a little interesting as far as the date of both the Charlie Kirk shooting and the date of this video, that this movie takes place in. But definitely having a reference to September and 10 on that sign, and Lincoln, the executioner Tyler. Of course, Lincoln was politically assassinated. So that's all very interesting. And then we move on to Charles Kirkland. So Charlie Kirk, Charles Kirkland, parallel with their names there. And as you saw there, he got shot in the neck. Blood was spurting out of his neck after he got shot. So that was a political assassination where he was shot in the same part of the body as Charlie Kirk. And it was as Lincoln, the executioner Tyler, got knocked out and knocked down to the ground, and everyone jumped up to their feet everyone in the crowd was on their feet watching the fight, that the shooting takes place.
Yep.
So,
yep.
Yeah.
I mean, that covers a lot of the details that I saw. Yeah, basically just the dude who was killed, his name being essentially the same, is just that's like astronomical. I think I went to ChatGPT and I like calculated the odds of all of these things. Like, what are the odds that he had pretty much the same first and last name? That there would be the Tyler coincidence. That there would be like the date coincidence. That there would be the Israeli involvement. That he would get shot in the same place. Like, if you just multiply all those together, like the odds are like in the like billions, probably, if not higher, of this being, of it not being a coincidence, essentially.
Yeah, because some of those things by themselves, like, yeah, if you make enough movies, eventually you're going to have a movie character with the name Charlie Kirk. But what are the odds of that person then also getting shot, and not just getting shot, but getting shot in the same part of the body as Charlie Kirk? And there being references to it being a political assassination. Like, there's so many details where, like, each detail by itself may not necessarily mean much, but when you add detail plus detail plus detail plus detail plus detail and it builds into this narrative, the odds of that whole narrative taking place are pretty astronomically small without it being planned out.
Yep. That is my
And then
takeaway.
the other kind of interesting thing is just before the shooting takes place, of course, he gets the call, he looks up, and so you notice he said his lucky number, and there was a chick like holding the sign that said round 7, which is weird because it was actually still the first round of the boxing match. And they've mentioned that later in the movie that it's still round 1 of the boxing match, but she's holding the sign that says round 7. So that's a weird kind of like, hey, why did they do that? Why did they have someone holding up the wrong number? But as you're seeing her holding up the number 7, you're also seeing that eye, that floating blimp eye, like floating through the crowd, which that ends up being important later in the movie because there's a camera on that blimp that catches some really important stuff. But the symbolism of the eye, of course, you've got the mind's eye and a bunch of different like spiritual and occult systems. It's a big symbol of Freemasonry. It's a big symbol of a lot of different spiritual systems. You think back to like Back to the Future, in the scene towards the beginning of the movie where the lady is telling him about, save the clock tower. She's got the fire and tells him about the clock tower being struck by lightning. Behind her, there is a shop. I forget the name of it, but it's got like a sign of an eye in the pyramid. And like the name of the shop is some mystical thing, basically. And so it's like, it's kind of giving you that symbolism as a reference to say, okay, this is a part of the movie that you need to watch, and we're telling you to look and pay close attention to this. And that's something that occult secret societies will use that symbol as kind of a calling card to draw your attention to things.
Yep. Yeah, I noticed that. I was kind of 1984 vibes is a symbolism that I thought about. But yeah, that's definitely similar, like kind of occult, not necessarily Illuminati, but just like the same symbolism that you see in a lot of places. I just saw something interesting on the Wikipedia too. It says that he deduces that the sniper, a known Palestinian terrorist, assassinated Kirkland over the Pentagon's large-scale defense cooperation with and weapons system transfers to Israel. Which, I mean, that has been an ongoing conflict forever, so it's not it's not like, it's not extremely coincidental, but it's still pretty coincidental.
Yeah, so as we go through the rest of the clips in here, that'll actually come up, so we'll get to that in a minute. We can go ahead and push play again.
All right, let's see. Hold on, I gotta do this. Also, let's try to get your video going again. I wonder, so you already tried to reshare, unshare, and reshare, and it didn't work. Let's try to, I might try to hang up real quick and call you back, jump back on. Let's do that real quick. Let's see if that works.
How about now?
There we go. Yep. I think we're good.
All right, cool.
Okay, so we're good there, but let me now switch the layers. All right, we're back to the clip. I'm at 1 minute and 43 seconds. Is that where you are, or do I need to go back a little bit?
Okay, yeah, we can start from there.
All right, 3, 2, 1, go.
You for getting up too quick?
What? Come on, I saw you and you saw me. And don't pretend like you don't know who I am, girly man. You want to look like a knockout, but when you heard the gunshot, your eyes were open in half a second. Not your fault. Totally understandable reaction, but it kind of ruined the performance, don't you think?
Look, what the hell do you want from me? The man knocked me out!
I looked at the fight tape, Lakin! Yeah! It was a phantom punch. A little bad Hollywood acting, but the Athletic Commission might find it interesting. And a second after you go down, an assassin fires. Well, that's some coincidence. I guess they don't call you the executioner for nothing.
They didn't say what round they wanted it in. They were gonna let me know during the fight. There was a guy in the front row. They told me what he was gonna say, and it was gonna be the signal to go down. I couldn't get that sack of shit to take a decent swing at me. He wouldn't stop talking. Like he was gonna bullshit me to death.
You gotta do better than that. Come on, baby.
It was like he was trying to screw up the deal. Right after that, I got the signal. It was quicker than I thought. I don't know. Maybe they were getting nervous. I wasn't supposed to go down right away. They were very clear about that. I had to take a punch, fall back into the corner, let him charge in, and knock me out.
Because they wanted everybody up on their feet, distracted, giving them a clear shot right through the camp.
But that punk-ass son of a bitch didn't swing through the punch.
A Palestinian who's lived in the United States for the last 6 years. He's believed to be linked to a series of threatening...
Sorry, did you say pause it again?
Yep.
All right.
Right about 3 minutes there. Yeah. So, basically, what we just saw there was, the punch went right by his head. It didn't actually connect solidly, and then talking to him about the fact that he basically threw the fight. And there's like a whole, extra story to that that's not in all those clips about how basically he was being like, he was way in debt to organized crime and was, basically pressured into throwing the fight in order to make enough money to pay back his debts. But yeah, basically, so the fight itself was staged, and he took a dive in a staged fight. And so I included that partly because, like, the fact that the movie itself is not just about the Charlie Kirk shooting, but also about this is a fake fight. Everything is staged. Everything is faked. They're giving you a whole narrative that everyone's going to believe because they're seeing, these particular clips. And everyone's going to watch this fight and think, oh, yeah, he got knocked out. But really, from the perspective of the guy in the fight, he was like, man, I could barely get that guy to even actually throw a good punch so that I could fake it.
Yep.
And so, you've got this kind of narrative with the Charlie Kirk shooting of like, yeah, the general public that just accepts what they're given is going to look at that and say, oh, he got shot in the neck by a 30-06. The news says so. And they're going to totally believe it. But anyone who looks into it just a little bit is going to be like, holy shit, this was like badly acted, but that like the excuses that they're giving you are total bullshit and definitely don't work out. Anyone who digs even a little bit beneath the surface is just going to not at all believe the mainstream narrative, and that's what happens in this movie. Is the detective digs just a little bit deeper beneath the surface and comes to the conclusion that everything that he thought he saw was bullshit.
Mm-hmm. Yep, that's always the takeaway and always the pattern. Like basically, you're always going to have like fidelity loss when it comes to any kind of narrative or any kind of investigation. Like the masses are just not going to look into it, and so it's like, it is kind of easy to get away with in that regard, depending on how hard and how much influence the people who do look into it have. And luckily, like with X, like it seems like X is like the only place where these kind of things even get any traction. Like without X, like they already have so much control of every other platform. So that's like the only reason I feel like half of this stuff has even been uncovered at this point.
Yeah, like you've definitely got smaller sites like Gab or Upgoat or whatever where you can talk about the stuff more openly, but X is the one place where like you can talk about it at least semi-openly, and like, as long as you're careful how you word things, you're not going to get banned or shadow banned or whatever.
Yeah.
But like Gab, you can still actually...
There's like no way for it to get. There's no way for it to actually get into the mainstream. It kind of just gets cut off and echo chambered there.
Right. Whereas on X, at least, like you can actually reach some portion of the other side. You can reach some portion of people who are in the middle or apolitical or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's like that's the one kind of mainstream site where you can actually get away with talking about things. So that's nice. But yeah, so basically I've included that stuff just to show how the movie is basically telling you that, lots of things are staged and that, most people are just going to believe what they're told to believe rather than looking into it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right, well, we can go again from there.
All right, let me switch this back over. And I'm at 307. Do I need to go back or you can go forward?
Go back like a few seconds.
All right.
Like 303.
Let's see here. What's the easiest way to do this? 303. All right, I'm ready. 3, 2, 1.
For the last 6 years, he's believed to be linked to a series of threatening letters written to various defense secretaries expressing outrage over the sale of missile systems and other weaponry to Israel. A handwritten note was found on Rabat's body.
Could you hold that up too, please?
Apparently, he intended it to be found after the shooting. Just because a guy has something plugged into his ear doesn't...
I asked. Teller says it was a radio.
Okay, we'll check it out, but A compulsive gambler who admits he took a dive might not turn out to be the best witness
It's
in the world.
not just him. Now, I'm betting that the redhead you followed is the same person who told Tyler to throw the fight. She's 1. Shooter's 2. Tyler's 3. The drunk who shouted the signal's 4. And whoever was on the other end of that radio was 5. 5 people make a conspiracy, right?
Yeah, look, anything's possible, but I gotta tell you, you got a file an inch thick on this guy Rabat. He's a well-known nutcase. It's clear he was ready to die for his cause. That's a suicide note. You know, I fly into the arms of Allah and shit like that. He was all worked up about our missile sales to Israel and...
Hey, guys got elected president just for being in the right place at the right time.
We need to be very, very careful with this. We go out there and yell conspiracy, it's like waving a lunatic flag. We gotta get our hands on the redhead or the guy that shouted the signal.
All right, hold it, stop right there. This is Dunn you're talking about. Naval uniform. Commander Kevin Dunn.
Right.
Talking with Rabat before he shoots Kirkland.
Yeah, I recognize him. I had just seen him come in.
Excuse me, did you say something?
It's in the pocket.
Possible make.
So you've been writing to me.
Just look in the envelope, Mr. Secretary.
What is it?
It's the satellite infrareds from yesterday's tests.
They gave me those. They showed convergent impact.
Well, then they gave you doctored copies. These are
Make
the
is good.
originals straight from the Proving
Stand
Ground
by.
computers. Please, just look for yourself. Okay.
She has the infrared.
I need you to look at the heat flashes here at the moment of impact. If the air guard had made
Start the
full
car.
intercept like it's supposed to, there'd be 1 dot, but there's 2 every time. The target blows up, but the air guard never gets within 10 meters of it.
Then why would the target blow up?
Well, because they rigged it, Mr. Secretary. They put on a fireworks display for you. The air guard doesn't work. And the company knows the system doesn't work, but they're pushing it through anyway. I know what they're thinking. We get it approved now, we say we're sorry, and we fix it later. But I am telling you, you're the one that's going to be sorry.
Jesus Christ, Bert Powell's out of his mind.
If you deploy that weapon system and a war breaks out...
All right, I get the picture.
It sounds like he's conducting an active investigation. A very dangerous investigation.
You said stop it, right?
Yep.
Man. Oh my goodness. There's a lot.
Yep.
Like,
Okay, so first of all,
yeah, go ahead.
we brought it up already, but like the fact that it was a Palestinian terrorist who was mad over like weapon sales to Israel, and so of course there's Israeli involvement in the conspiracy. They're framing a Palestinian. Of course, right now we've got Israel and Palestine conflict heating up with the the bombings and all that in Gaza over the last year or so. And Israel having their hands in everything. So obviously that part, and with all the the conspiracy theories about how Israel would have wanted to silence Charlie Kirk or whatever, which I don't know if it's exactly that or if it's more of that, like, this is a script that they're acting out and Charlie Kirk was like pretending to question them, and then they killed him in order to say, look, if in order to send a message to people that, hey, if you question us, we can just kill you and get away with it. So it's hard to say exactly, but definitely that is something that factors into the Charlie Kirk conspiracy theories, and here it is present in a movie that has all the symbolism about his death decades before it happened.
There was a couple, like, in addition. So it's like the idea that there's a patsy in general is really interesting. Like that like the shooter, like obviously the commander's like trying to stop it there. Like this is it. Case closed. Like here's the shooter. That's it. Like that's obviously very similar. The idea that there was like a distraction, which we probably already talked about. Like that's just very, very, very similar. The idea that like the government's involved or whatever, whether it's like FBI cover up, that's very similar. And like they're sitting there discussing, and they're literally like, he's literally like, it's a conspiracy, and they're like, no, it's like, once again, it's just so similar. And then it was really interesting, the idea that you said the idea that Kirk could have been like faking turning against Israel. So what is that something I'll tell you more about that. Is that like something that you're pretty convinced of, or is that just like one possibility among many, or what do you think?
It's definitely one possibility among many, but I mean, if this is like a whole series of events that was scripted out, and of course, like, this movie came out when Charlie Kirk was like 4 or 5 years old.
Right.
So, whatever this ritual was, if this movie actually was intentional predictive programming around that, then one of two things is true. Either A, they planned out his assassination and then recruited him specifically to have him go there and act out this public ritual, in which case his entire career could have been scripted out, including the things that he said about Israel.
Yeah.
Yeah, another possibility is, there's rumors about CERN doing time travel. We've already talked about all the Saturn symbolism that's in, Back to the Future and some of the other predictive works that are out there. I don't want to say it's impossible for them to have, like, made this movie because someone sent a message back in time. I also don't want to say that that's definitely what happened because, that does seem like a pretty wild possibility. But so that would be a possibility where, okay, maybe Charlie Kirk really was turning against them, and they sent this message back in time, and then made the movie as like a way to communicate it or whatever. I don't know.
Okay.
I mean, that's a weird theory, but as far as the theory that like his turning against Israel was scripted, the sort of the disagreement between like Zionist Jews and more left-wing like communist and progressive Jews, that's been a big part of how politics has been controlled in this country for a while. And the Jews play both sides of everything, including their own ethno-state. So having somebody who is controlled by them, who is criticizing Israel in the specific ways that they want him to criticize Israel, whether that's because they want criticism to follow that particular line of reasoning, or whether that's because they want to then publicly sacrifice him so that way they can go to all the other influencers and say, look, if we can get away with killing this guy first, turning against us, we can get away with whatever we want with you. And that way intimidate them into doing what they want. There's multiple possible explanations for why they would have done it this way. But if they are orchestrating this series of events like 9/11 and COVID and all this to like control the masses in a particular way, there may be certain details of that the people planning this, who are really putting a lot of thought into human psychology and what it takes to animate people and affect the way that they're doing things, they may have determined that having that be a detail in the story, and that's something that the conspiracy theorists can all wrap their minds around or whatever, to like control our part of the narrative while controlling the general public in another way. I mean, it's a possibility. I'm not going to say that I'm 100% sold on that being the truth. I'm just saying that's a possibility for what they could be doing and why they could be doing it. Obviously, whatever they're doing it on a very high level that is above what most of us would ever even think to do.
Yeah. Damn. Okay. So what I'm thinking is like we'll probably finish looking at the clips just so we just get all the evidence of the thing, and then I think we'll just maybe go wild with like the fucking what it means, because that's oh man, there's so much to think of, and I'm down to get into that. But another idea I had. Yeah. I just wanted to really quick. I wanted to ChatGPT and just be like, what are maybe I should Grok instead of ChatGPT, but I wanted to be like, what are some of the most plausible examples of predictive programming that we've seen? Let's see.
Yeah. Let me make one more point while you're looking up that. So you'll notice that the lady in the white blazer was dressed in basically the same outfit that Erica Kirk was wearing at like the big TPUSA event, the memorial for Charlie Kirk. Like she was wearing that same like white blazer outfit that Erica Kirk was wearing. So that's another weird link between what's going on in this movie and what happened in real life, and in particular with her like wearing a wig, and she's not, she's basically trying to hide who she really is, and all this talk about Erica Kirk's weird past and how maybe she was planted in Charlie Kirk's life in order to control him or in order to play a role in the stage play that they're acting out. If Erica Kirk was recruited through the modeling thing and through her her parents' government past in order to sort of be an agent and act out this role, well, this piece of predictive programming kind of points to that and gives some more credence to that.
Yes. Yeah, man. There's so many connections. Good Lord.
Yeah. Oh, one other thing with them, like giving the signal and having like a particular thing that they're saying in order for, to like let him know to take the fall and then let the shooter know from that point to take the shot. If you noticed it, like in the videos of Charlie Kirk getting shot, whenever they show, like at least like 30 seconds or whatever before that, Charlie was asked a question specifically about left-wing violence and about like mass shooting attempts, and he was
Trans
like
shooters,
starting
yeah.
to, yeah, he was literally talking about transgender shooters and about how, how much more common left-wing violence is becoming. That's the moment at which they decided to shoot him. How much of a coincidence is it that the dude who's like dating a tranny, who supposedly took the shot, would have decided to shoot him at the exact time when he's talking about trans mass shooters? And how would he have known that from 200 yards away on a roof? So that's another one of those things where it's like the official story is just too coincidental and weird to actually be true.
Yeah.
But if we're taking this movie as sort of a better explanation of what happened, then it makes sense that they would have given the signal to either fake his shooting or have whoever actually shot him shoot him as they're talking about that specific thing. That makes sense that they would give that that signal basically, and then have him get shot as he's talking about that specific.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. So if you want, we can just go ahead and finish the rest of the clips from here. We've only got like 3 or 4 minutes left.
So just play it out to the end.
Yep.
Okay. I'm at 5:47. I guess it doesn't really matter that we're synced up this time. So I'll just go ahead and play it. 3, 2, 1, go.
Kirkland died 10 minutes ago. 5 minutes from now, I gotta be on TV. Now, what is it? Yes or no? We got a goddamn Columbo running around loose?
No operation goes exactly as planned. You don't panic. Stay calm and tie up loose ends. What do you think I've been doing for the last hour?
Jesus Christ. This is not the plan I invested in. And the plan I bought, that prairie populist who is criminally dismantling the entire armed forces, goes down. The disloyal employee, she goes down with him. The fanatical terrorist, he takes the rap. The Air Guard missile contract is approved, and I get enough money to finish the goddamn millennium. It was a good plan.
Oh, man. Oh, man.
They were specifically told they couldn't have a camera up there. Don't give me that wounded look. You haven't got the face for it.
I just received word. Secretary Charles Evans Kirkland is dead. He passed away at 10:48 p.m. At this time, I'd like to extend my deepest sympathies to the Secretary's family. And to the nation, to the people that he so faithfully and proudly served. And, I have something else to say. To those that would try to bully us or to terrorize us, to divert us from the causes of peace and justice.
Kevin.
I want you to know that in spite of what's happened here tonight, we are not deterred. Production of the Air Guard missile system will go ahead, in accordance with Secretary Kirkland's wishes.
That's called the first draft of history. It's going to hold.
Well, it looks like Tropical Storm Jezebel just may be a hurricane after all.
All right, so you should be about to the end of that then.
Oh, okay, yeah. I know there was a couple of still shots it went through, and I was like, I didn't know it ended, but I was just reading the last post with some additional stuff there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, which let me finish the stuff about the movie before we jump into that.
Yeah.
That's about this music video that Eric a few years back. But yeah, so that guy that was on screen saying that it was his plan, that the character in the movie's name is Gilbert Powell. He owned a hotel casino resort, just like Donald Trump, in Atlantic City, same place where Donald Trump owns hotel casino resorts.
That's right. It was based on him, wasn't it?
Yep, that character was based on him. Actually, the hotel that they filmed a lot of parts of the movie in is, I think it's like the Taj Hotel and Casino, which is owned by Donald Trump. So they literally were filming scenes in a hotel owned by Donald Trump with a character who's based on Donald Trump, who orchestrates a political assassination. Gosh, wow. So yeah, that's a lot of ties there. And then having him like go on TV and tell people, oh, and we're going to finish this, missile weapon system that the secretary would have wanted us to finish, which actually there was, as you see throughout the movie, he was not convinced that that missile defense system, should go through. He was really debating whether or not, he should cut that spending or whether he should fund it. But because the demagogue gets on TV and says, and this is what he wanted and we're going to go with it. And you think about how that factors into like Charlie Kirk starting to question and second guess Israel, and then he gets killed, and then everyone, who goes to his memorial event is like so much more pro-Israel now because of Charlie Kirk.
Right.
And
yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that theme's definitely there. And then like that camera shot that you saw of the military guy being the only one standing there, that was what was caught by the eye on the camera. Or the camera on the floating eye, basically, that basically proved that, yes, that military guy and the government, therefore, were involved in the staged assassination attempt. But yeah, like, the use of that character that's based directly on Donald Trump definitely ties Trump into the movie, and with as much as he was a part of Kirk's political career and, the aftermath of his assassination, it's yet another thing that ties this movie to the Charlie Kirk shooting in a pretty clear way that should not have been obvious back in 1998 unless they were orchestrating things way ahead of time.
Right. One thing that was interesting is like just this idea of killing someone to try to stop what they're doing, or versus like you kill them and then now they become a martyr, and now the thing that they want is even more fueled, right? Like that's always the conundrum there. Like same with Trump, like obviously that like the failed assassination attempt like empowered his message, and saying like Charlie has almost become like a martyr, and so it's like more pro-Christianity, more pro-Israel, more pro everything that he stood for, essentially. Even though like yes, you did lose that person, but it's almost like it's almost like more amplified now. Yeah, that's always interesting.
Yeah, it kind of gives them a mandate to go and do whatever they wanted to do because they sacrificed this person, and now it's got, a bunch of people on the right all energized to go fight for what he believed in, basically.
Yep.
Yeah.
I saw
okay, and then
this. Yeah, go ahead. You got it.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say I saw that I saw the storm's name was Jezebel or whatever, and then like I forgot about that thing about like the witches trying to cast the curse or whatever was also like Jezebel or whatever.
Yeah, it was like published in Jezebel, which is like a feminist magazine or whatever. So yeah, that was just another interesting little thing that maybe it was just a coincidence, but it seems
Add it to all the rest. Add it to the big bag of coincidences.
Yeah, add it to all the rest, and it seems like a little too much to be coincidence. And like for them to have, published an article about witches cursing Charlie Kirk shortly before he got shot, and then took it down afterwards.
Yeah.
That was weird. Yeah. One other thing. I don't know if you noticed the number on top of the police van at the end there, but it was 47. Who's the 47th?
Yeah.
Yep. And not only that, but on the table next to Charlie Kirk when he got shot were hats that said 47. It was like 3 of them sitting there in a row. One thing, like numerologically, that some people have pointed out 4 plus 7 is 11. 11 times 3 is 33. 33 is like a hugely significant occult number. It's a number of degrees in Freemasonry, the number of vertebrae in your spine. It relates to like a whole bunch of different spiritual things. So 47, 47, 47, you had those three hats sitting on his table. That adds up to 33. But then also having the 47 on the police van, well, why are they tied? Why is that number tied into this whole conspiracy thing? So yeah, that was just yet another interesting thing that maybe it's just a coincidence, but you added into all the other coincidences, and it seems like it was intentional.
Yeah.
Yep. So yeah, that pretty much covers everything from the movie itself, and then those last few stills, those were from this music video that Erica Kirk did with it was with Emerson Drive. The song is "She's My Kind of Crazy," and yeah, there's a shot of 9/10, which of course is the date that Charlie Kirk died. She was pointing to the Mandalay Bay, which is the location of I think it was the biggest mass shooting in American history. Was like the Mandalay Bay shooter. So that was a little bit of a weird coincidence. There's a little bit more symbolism in there, like the butterfly tattoo. Of course, that's been a symbol used by like the CIA for like MK Ultra and mind control type of stuff. They used like the Fremont Hotel was in there also, which Fremont versus free man. The name Charlie means free man. Also, Freemasons had to be free men in order to join the Freemasons, so that may be a link to Freemasonry. So that's just another thing where it's like, it's kind of weird that she did this, music video that just happened to have 9/10 and a reference to a big mass shooting that hadn't happened yet at the time of her doing the video. And then just happened to work out that her husband got killed on 9/10 by a shooting.
Yeah, so like definitely some are strong, some connections are stronger than others. But yeah, it's just like when you look at the grand picture, it's like, damn, like really, yeah, most of it's just yeah, the movie's a big part of it, but yeah, I mean, outside of it, there's just so much that's weird. And so like, one of the interesting things, like this is even more uncanny to me than what we saw with Back to the Future and a lot of other things. It's like, damn, this is just so like if you then theorize about so let's assume that yes, someone did plan all this. It's like you said, Charlie was like 4 years old when this movie came out. It really makes you think, like, at times I think about the idea that there are, like, I feel like a conservative theory is to say that there's like humans who are organized and in control of this, but like a slightly more liberal theory is that there's some kind of transcendental kind of like forces going on, like some kind of synchronicities, some kind of string pulling entities. You mentioned like the idea of like time travel and stuff, and I went back to like some of the most fringe like ideas that I wouldn't say I subscribe to, but like I'm pretty, I take them seriously.
Open-minded.
One of them is like if you remember, like whenever Alex Jones starts popping off and starts talking about like the really out there shit. And he talks about like this idea that like the government has like perfected, like they basically hook these people up to like DMT and like inject them for like hours so that they can just like basically they're just involved in this space. Like there's just and so like yeah, there is this idea that we could have been transferring information like on some kind of quantum layer, like outside of time. Like there's just the possibilities get really, really crazy. And typically my stance with stuff like that is just like, it's really hard to know for sure. It's really hard to even really talk about or act on that stuff. So, but yeah, there's so much more that we can do in a more tangible way. Like obviously we can just point out issues with the Jews in Israel, and that's plenty for now. We'll uncover what kind of craziness is happening later. But it is just really interesting to think about that there are forces on that level, either humans that are organized to that extent, and potentially some kind of like transcendental forces or time warping or something that we don't even understand could be at play here. It's just really trippy for sure.
Yeah, and like there are definitely theories about it, and I don't know which one to subscribe to. Like one is that these are people who are like reincarnating and have a way to remember things from not just past lives, but like outside of life whenever they're, and in spiritual form or whatever in between lives. And so, somebody like Charlie Kirk, maybe he was chosen for this role when he was a child because he's, his spirit was some occultist or Jew or Kabbalist or whatever in a past life, and then he reincarnated, and they're like, okay, well, you reincarnated specifically so we could have you act out this ritual. Therefore, you have to, live your life in this way and fill this role so that way when the time comes we can do this. And maybe that's something that they figured out, when he was a child, because it was something that was planned out by spiritual forces outside of life, or maybe because that was something that was planned out in his past life, and then they were like, okay, yeah, this is the guy, we've found his reincarnated form or something. It may be that they're dealing with some kind of entities that are somehow otherworldly, whether that's aliens or whether that's spiritual beings or whatever. And I'm not going to say that I know, because honestly I don't. I'm not at that level of occult spirituality where I can figure it out.
Yeah, it's funny.
Yeah,
Like,
I mean,
I was just gonna say, like, I feel like it's like the way that I react to like those kind of like possibilities is how I feel like most like normal people react to like common like far right talking points, like just the, stuff about the Jews. Like they're kind of just like their brains don't even have like the capacity, or like they don't have the basis, and they haven't spent any time, so they just kind of like it just almost just you can't even really absorb or process it. You kind of just know it's out there, and it's just like, but you have more tangible things to focus on. And so it's a similar kind of thing. It's like we're just a few layers above like the normal consideration, but like this is still like fucking wow, damn.